Pope Francis called for peace in the Holy Land in his annual Easter Sunday address, saying the Israeli-Gaza border conflict does not spare the defenseless. The pontiff's message of peace came as the death toll from Friday's violence, which saw the Israeli army use live fire on Palestinian protesters along the Gaza border, rose to 18. A Palestinian Health Ministry said Monday that a 29-year-old Gaza man died of injuries sustained when a major demonstration led to clashes along the border with the Gaza Strip, killing more than a dozen and injuring hundreds. Pope Francis made his appeal in his Urbi et Orbi, to the city and the world, message from the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica to tens of thousands of people in the flower-bedecked square below where he earlier celebrated a mass. The Pope appeared to refer directly to the Gaza violence, calling for reconciliation for the Holy Land, also experiencing in these days the wounds of ongoing conflict that do not spare the defenseless. Israel's military has faced questions from rights groups over its use of live fire on Friday, the bloodiest day in the conflict since the 2014 war, while Palestinians accused soldiers of firing on protesters posing no threat. Both UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and EU diplomatic chief Federica Mogherini have called for an independent investigation. On Saturday, the United States blocked a draft UN Security Council statement urging restraint and calling for an investigation of the violence, diplomats said. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised the soldiers for guarding the country's borders, while Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman said the protests were not a Woodstock festival. Lieberman said calls for an independent investigation were hypocritical and on Sunday repeated his rejection of such a probe. There will be no commission of inquiry, he told Israel's public radio. There will be no such thing here. We shall not cooperate with any commission of inquiry. Netanyahu also hit back at Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan over his sharp criticism of what he called Israel's inhumane attack in Gaza. The most moral army in the world will not be lectured to on morality from someone who for years has been bombing civilians indiscriminately, Netanyahu tweeted. He has previously labeled Erdogan as someone who bombs Kurdish villagers. Erdogan responded later in the day by calling Netanyahu a terrorist. On Friday, Israeli troops opened fire on Palestinians who strayed from a main protest camp attended by tens of thousands and approached the heavily fortified fence cutting off the blockaded Gaza Strip. The military has defended actions of its soldiers and said they opened fire only when necessary against those throwing stones and firebombs or rolling tires at soldiers. It said there were attempts to damage the fence and infiltrate Israel, while alleging there was also an attempted gun attack against soldiers along the border. Israel accuses Hamas, the Islamist group that runs Gaza and with whom it has fought 3 wars since 2008, of using the protest as cover to carry out violence. In addition to the 18 Palestinians killed, more than 1,400 were wounded Friday, 758 of them by live fire, with the remainder hurt by rubber bullets and tear gas inhalation, the health ministry in Gaza said. No casualties were reported among Israelis. The armed wing of Hamas said 5 of those killed were its members who were participating in popular events side by side with their people. The Israeli army alleges that 10 of the dead had documented terror backgrounds in Hamas and other groups and were killed whilst carrying out acts of terror. Unverified videos being shared online have fueled the debate, including one appearing to show a protester running with a tire being shot while seeming to pose no threat. Israel's army has issued a statement saying footage is being edited and fabricated, without referring to specific videos. Rights groups including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have criticized Israel's use of live fire. Israel had deployed troop reinforcements along the border, including more than 100 Special Forces snipers, saying it would prevent attempts to break through the fence. While some Palestinian demonstrators have thrown stones and other objects towards the fence, it's hard to believe how this would be an imminent danger to the lives of well-equipped soldiers protected by snipers, tanks and drones, Amnesty said. The protest, which includes tents erected at various areas, is designed to last 6 weeks, ending around the time the United States moves its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in mid-May. The embassy move has deeply angered the Palestinians, who see Jerusalem's annexed eastern sector as the capital of their future state. But while tens of thousands attended Friday's start of the protests, demonstrations have since dwindled. Several hundred attended on Saturday, while on Sunday dozens were in the area, with low-level clashes occurring. I left the hospital today and I came straight back, Hamad Azaza, 18 and with a bloodied bandage on his hand covering what he said was a bullet wound, told AFP. The protests may however again see large crowds after this coming Friday's main Muslim prayers and for other key dates ahead. May 14 will mark 70 years since the creation of Israel and is when the United States is expected to open its new Jerusalem embassy. Palestinians will mark what they call the Nakba, or catastrophe, the following day. The Nakba commemorates the more than 700,000 Palestinians who either fled or were expelled from their homes in the war surrounding Israel's creation in 1948. Gaza's protest is in support of refugees, including those in the Palestinian enclave who want to return to their former homes in what is now Israel.
Tell me where the freaks at.